Hi, this is Colin Sandberg from Backbone Performance, and I'm posting some brief videos with my answers to common questions I get from athletes. I always encourage athletes to reach out to me when they have questions, but there are some questions that come up often enough that I thought I would try to make some videos that can be used as a resource for coached and non-coached athletes alike. Promise that I will try to keep it brief, so let's get started. Next question. What should I do if I don't have time to do my workout? This is probably the number one reason that athletes give when they miss a workout. Now, that doesn't mean it's necessarily the real underlying reason, but nonetheless, most competitive people are busy people because they're trying to squeeze into their lives as much as possible, whether that's training, racing, work projects, family stuff, or whatever. And if you try to cram all of that stuff into your life, you probably start every day with a to-do list that will take up more time than you have. And without going into a whole thing about the perils of modern technology, you have the internet and social media and text messages and a lot of things that are vying for your attention and really pulling you away from actually working your way through that to-do list. So long story short, if you don't set aside time to do your training, something else is going to come forward and just eat that time up. So the first step is to set aside time and make sure that you don't let anything interfere with that time, short of a real emergency. And if you find that those emergencies, whether they're at work or at home, seem to be happening a lot, you might want to think about finding a different time to train. I know this is probably not what most people want to hear, but for many busy people, the best time to train is early in the morning. If everyone else is sleeping, there's no one to bother you. So you set your alarm clock for 4:30 a.m. or whatever you need to do. You get a cup of coffee, you get a quick bite to eat, maybe a gel, and then you hop on the trainer. You knock out your workout, or maybe you're on the road or on the trainer by 5 a.m. You've done your workout by 6:30. You can hop in the shower, get your kids ready for school, get yourself ready for work, got your training done with. For some people, that can be really hard to get used to. So the important thing to remember is that you have to get over that hump until that waking up that early just becomes habit. Because if you're relying on just motivation alone to get you out of bed when you're tired, that motivation dries up. But if you just keep doing it and doing it, eventually you get to a point where you're not relying on that motivation, it's just what you do. The other side of this is that it's very important not to waste any time during your workouts. You have to be efficient with them. And this is because the other things in your life are important. So have respect for your family, for your work, for the other interests you have in your life, and plan ahead. Fill your water bottles, pump up your tires, lay out your clothes the night before, knock out your workout, and then get on with your life. Key here, in case you haven't noticed, is plan ahead. If you're good at planning, you could identify most of these, the times that'll be tough for you to get your workouts in ahead of time. So if an athlete calls me up and says, hey, it's 9 o'clock, the day kind of got away from me, and I don't really have time to ride, what should I do? We don't really have a lot of options there. But if somebody calls me up and says, hey, next Monday you have me down for this ride and I'm going to be out of town for work. So we've got lots of options there. We can move the workout to a different day, we can do something different, or we can decide it's best just to skip it. And if you're trying to make that call on your own, i.e. without a coach, which is fine, you have to start with an awareness of what your training priorities are. There's a tendency a lot of people have to skip the workouts that you don't really like and to make sure you do the things that you do like, but a lot of times that's the opposite of what you should be doing. For example, I see a lot of people skipping their strength workouts or their gym workouts, and to be honest, I'm guilty of this myself. I didn't become a cyclist so I could lift weights. I don't think most people did. But then I'll be in some long road race and my back hurts, my knees hurt, I can't walk after the race, and I'll be thinking, oh, maybe I shouldn't have skipped all those strength workouts. Um, so yeah, you have to know what's most important, and of course, on the flip side, what's going to be first on the chopping block. And it's different for everybody, and it changes throughout the season and the different periods of training. Um, that said, if you're down for a recovery ride, that's probably not the most important ride in your week. Recovery rides are great. Highly encourage them. They help with recovery. But if you're missing an hour of sleep so you can do an hour of recovery ride, you'd probably be better off sleeping. Um, Next thing you want to look at is cutting down the volume. So if you can get in your workouts and you can do it in less time, go for it. Now, I think warm-ups are important, cool-downs are important, but it doesn't need to be excessive. And I'll see a lot of times where people are riding 45 minutes each or more each way just to get to where they're going to do their intervals. Um, so that's 45 minutes on each end. That's an hour and a half of the workout that's already taken up just getting to doing the workout. And if that's the case, you might want to either A, find a different place to do your intervals, B, take your bike to work with you and either start your ride right from work, or maybe commute, or drive to where you're going to do your intervals, or C, um, just ride the trainer, and then you have complete control over everything. So generally speaking, structured intervals are going to be more important parts of your training, but that isn't always true. So for some people, and especially at certain times of the year, those endurance rides are the most important workouts. And you may not have time to do a 4-hour endurance ride. Do a 2-hour endurance ride. Just do it right. I can't stress that enough. Don't go too hard just because you're short on time. Keep your heart rate in zone 2 and keep the coasting time down. Another thing to keep in mind, you will miss workouts. That is part of training. Sometimes life does get in the way. Sometimes your body tells you tells you no, and if you just try to push through that without paying any attention to anything, it's a recipe for disaster. It's not going to be good. So you're going to miss workouts. It's what you do about it that matters. What you should almost never do about it is try to pile it on to the next day and say, okay, I'm done. I'm down for intervals today and endurance tomorrow, so I don't have time today. I'm just going to do my intervals and my endurance tomorrow. Pick one. Know what the high priority one is. Make sure you get that done. And then if there's time to do the other one, try to do it. Just be careful about kicking the can down the road too much, especially if you're racing that weekend. And if you've got some intensity planned on the weekend, realize that you might be a little bit more tired, a little bit more fatigued for it. And the other thing I wanted to say is you almost always want to try and do something. A lot of people fall into what I call the what the hell factor, as in, what the hell, I've already had one donut, I might as well have 6. Or, what, I can't do a 3-hour ride, so what the hell, I'm just going to skip everything altogether. Don't do that. If you can't do 3 hours, do 2 hours. Do 1 hour. Do 20 minutes. Do a 5-minute core workout. No one's schedule is too busy they can't fit 5 minutes into exercise, and something is infinitely better than nothing. If for no other reason than every day you do something, it continues that forward training momentum, which is something you always want to try to keep moving in that right direction, even if it's slow. So plan as well as you can, be flexible, move things around when you can, and do what you can, even if it's extremely limited. But if you're finding that you're missing more than, say, 25% of your training, then you should probably be looking at making some more significant changes. Maybe your expectations are a little bit too high, a little bit unrealistic for how much time you actually have available to train, and that's not a big deal. I know successful Cat 1s who are training 6 hours a week. You can do it on less time. You just have to be very efficient with the time you have. Or maybe you need to have a hard look at your schedule and see how you can get that time in. or maybe it's a matter of being more efficient at work, or maybe you have to ask the people around you to be better at giving you that time and not interrupting you when you're training. Um, or maybe you have to do a better job at staying away from the internet, social media, uh, anything else that could be distracting you or keeping you away from doing your training in that time you do have set aside, because it's limited and you have to value that. So hopefully that helps with this question. If you have any other questions you would like me to answer, please write them in the comments or email me at colin@backboneperformance.com. Happy riding.